Welcome to the You're Not Crazy podcast, hosted by Jessica Knight, a certified life coach who specializes in healing from narcissistic and emotional abuse. This podcast is intended to help you identify manipulative and abusive behavior, set boundaries with yourself and others, and heal the relationship with yourself so you can learn to love in a healthy way. You can connect with Jessica and find additional resources, content, and coaching at emotionalabusecoach.com.
Hello, and thank you so much for being here. Before I get started, I'm just going to share quickly how you can find me. You can find me at emotionalabusecoach.com or high-conflictdivorcecoaching.com. You can find me on Instagram at emotionalabusecoach. You can find me on Substack if you search Jessica Knight with a K coaching. And you can email me at jessica@jessicaknightcoaching.com. I have courses, self-study courses on documentation and how to divorce a narcissist, which is essentially what we're talking about today. And I was reflecting this week and was just sort of sitting with the feeling of like what people don't understand about high conflict divorce. It's almost impossible to explain to somebody what's actually going on when you're going through it. And I know this because I went through it. I didn't even realize it was high conflict. I thought it was just going to be a hard divorce because the person I was divorcing didn't want to get divorced. We had a very young child, and due to his work schedule and addiction issues, I was already the primary parent. I would have wanted to be that regardless, but it almost was like, how am I going to get through this to the other side in a place that may or may not feel okay with somebody who is erratic and all over the place and maybe doesn't respond to things the way that I would want someone to respond. And in an effort to not say too much about that, because if you're in this, you'll know why, I'm going to keep my details private, but I do speak with my clients about the nuances of my story because it helps them make sense of their own. But for the purpose of this podcast, I'm not going to do that. And like I said, if you're in this process, you understand why. But this week I was reflecting on this and I was thinking about the isolation of high conflict divorce. And a lot of people don't understand what this is like. They think you should just work together for the kid. Like that's what they'll say. Why can't you two just work together? They don't realize that many of us are trying to work together for our child or children, but we're up against safety concerns, deception, and agreements that are made and then broken and then made and then broken. There is constant blame shifting, gaslighting, and misrepresentation of the truth. This is post-separation abuse, and it happens even before you are divorced. It happens in the process of separating. And when you are trying to navigate this, you're also going through legal proceedings, you're working your job, and you're being traumatized in the moment. And you're probably also afraid that your child is also getting traumatized. And when I went through my divorce in 2018, there weren't many resources out there. One mom's battle was gaining traction, but divorcing a narcissist or a coercive controller wasn't widely discussed yet. I thought I was just divorcing someone who didn't want to be divorced. Or worse, I was divorcing someone I was afraid of. And I thought if I did everything the quote unquote right way, the fair way, things would eventually make sense. But I was wrong. The narrative was changing at every turn, and I didn't recognize the pattern because nobody prepares you for this. Nobody can tell you what you're going to go through. And luckily, there's a lot more information out there now, but it wasn't there at the time. When I would reflect on divorce, I would think about when my mom divorced my stepdad, and it was straightforward. 2 lawyers, no court appearances, finances were split. My brothers had the terrible 2-2-3 schedule. I wasn't his kid, so I wasn't included in any of that. And I hated him. And that's what I thought divorce was. That, I watched my brothers come back dysregulated with their laundry, not know where any of their items were. They were struggling in school. And they had probably a high conflict divorce, but high conflict divorce is nothing like that. Like when it's really like what we experience now and what we're going through. And movies don't show the reality of this. They don't show the constant legal battles, the exhaustion, documentation, the waiting and hoping that the judge just gets it, that they finally figured out the way to get through to court professionals. They don't show how logic doesn't always apply to these situations. You think that if agreement says X and they do Y, the judge will see the problem. They'll see it. They'll get it. But that's not how it works. Judges have different personalities, biases, time constraints. Sometimes there's blatant lies being made about finances or parenting time that don't hold the weight that you think they should in court because they can't. Like the judge can't, you don't have enough time in front of the judge so that they see the entire pattern. And there's so many nuances that create the high conflict part of it. Like if it's always he said, she said, it's almost impossible. I've seen people go in front of a judge with everything: clear documentation, proof of broken agreements, dates, times, calendars, and somehow they still end up being the one in trouble. They still end up being the one that is told they're not being flexible because the system isn't designed to protect you. It's designed to preserve both sides. I actually was in front of a judge yesterday, and the judge said, my job isn't, and this is actually, I thought, a very good and fair judge, but she said, my job is not to make you two happy. My job is your child's best interests. But sometimes a child's best interest in the eyes of the court, in the eyes of this specific person, is not what you think is in the best interest of your child or what's happening in real time. So much stuff happens outside. So like your divorce happens outside of the courtroom, really. Like that's the battlefield that you're in all the time. Very little time is in front of the judge and in the court. And abusers thrive on this. They thrive in family court because they know how to manipulate narratives. They delay proceedings. They exhaust their victims financially and emotionally. They say that you're the one extending litigation when you're not. And the legal system prioritizes co-parenting, quote unquote, over protection, which forces survivors to negotiate and speak to their abuser every day, even and especially when there's a history of control and violence. And then when we lean into another strategy, like, look, I can't get anywhere with him. I'm just going to figure out what parallel parenting looks like. You're told that you're wrong because you're not co-parenting. And it's not just the legal battle that's exhausting. It's the fact that you're trying to co-parent with somebody who is actively trying to make your life hell. And for many of my clients, this means no contact with their kids, even when they're with the other parent. Kids coming back dysregulated, exhausted, emotionally shut down. So you're always playing a guessing game of what's going on. By the time you finally figure it out, it's time for them to transition again. And no ability to work out any simple agreement because the other parent refuses to communicate. They're thinking about themselves. They're not thinking about the child. And I remember being in court one day. Everything was being blown up as usual. My lawyer and his lawyer stepped outside, leaving us alone in the courtroom. And I just had this moment where I wanted to walk over and say, can we just stop this? Can we please just stop? Please? This little girl doesn't need this. But I didn't, because I really knew I couldn't. I knew if anything, it would be used against me. I knew that anything I said would be used against me, and that my words would be gaslit and twisted, and I would regret even opening my mouth in the first place. And this is really what outside world people don't understand. You can't just talk it out. From the beginning, the narrative is rewritten. And once that starts, it does not stop. There is never going to be a time where they just stop rewriting the narrative. And that is something that I think is really hard for people to grasp. It's not just going to click one day and they're going to start being dad of the year or mom of the year. It is going to, it will not, the narrative will not be rewritten. I mean, not stop being rewritten. That's what they're committed to at this point. Nobody tells you how expensive it is either to be going through this, right? People will say you got to keep doing what you're doing, you're doing the best you can. Well, it's not just a $5,000 retainer. It's not even $15,000. A lot of times it's six figures, drained from savings, from retirement, whatever you can access, because the other person wins when they exhaust you. They win when you run out of money and energy and just give up. Just withdraw. People don't realize that every decision, every extracurricular activity, every therapy appointment, every small expense can turn into a legal battle. One of my clients spent tens of thousands of dollars just trying to get her son into therapy. Another was relentlessly harassed by her ex. She had a panic episode, had to check into a hospital, and what happened next? He used it as a way to take away her parenting time, rather than understanding that she did what she needed to do at that moment for 1 week, And she took care of her mental health rather than neglecting it like the other side does. And this is not just about the money. It's the exhaustion of constantly being on edge. The tension in your body that never fully goes away, the way your nervous system never really resets. This is your hypervigilance. It's a trauma response. You're trying to show up for your kids, but you're being told that you're the worst parent in the world all the time. You're getting emails about that are like, have this subtle way of accusing you of being neglectful or abusive or not being a good parent or talking about the other parent or like, it's like a war zone all the time. You're spending money you don't have. You're documenting things that feel like they just go nowhere. And the worst part, you can't even tell your kid the truth because they need to be outside of the conflict. But they're wondering what the hell is going on? And why do I feel this way about mommy when I'm a daddy? Or vice versa. And just when they start to regulate and their system understands and they get used to it, the cycle starts all over again because the other person needs to have control. And I think the legal system or the family law legal system, it's not just about corporate law. It's not what people see on TV. It's messy and painful and impossible to explain to someone who hasn't lived it. Most people in this situation lose friends and family and their sense of self because it takes over your whole life. And even when you want to move on, you just feel like you can't because, and I say this all the time, you're never going to stop being your kid's mom or dad, and if you are the safe parent, the protective parent listening to this, because I assume that you are, and if you're not the protective parent and you're listening to this and you're trying to assign all these words to the protective parent, I want you to listen to this again and then think about how you are creating everything obstacle for the other parent. But if you are the protective parent and all of this has resonated with you, and the reason I say all that is because people do weaponize content like this. I haven't had the experience where someone says like, they weaponized your content against me, but there's other people on the internet that like the abuser will find, and then now they're using all those words against you. So if you are that person and you're listening to this and you're like, my wife is definitely a narcissist because all she's doing is trying to protect the kid, I really want you to take a second and go back to the beginning right now and think about all the obstacles you're creating. And now I'm going to step off my soapbox and continue. But I think the thing is that like we're trying so hard to protect our kids, and it doesn't look like corporate law. It doesn't look like what we see on TV. It's messy, it's painful, it's impossible to explain to somebody who hasn't lived it. And that's why we lose friends and family, because you want to move on, because you can't. Because, like I was saying, parenting doesn't end. Like if you're the protective parent, they're not going to be 18. You're going to be like, all right, checked out. You're not going to go to their college graduation. And yeah, you certainly probably are going to sit very separately from your ex. But it's also like, if they're there, they're going to be there. Your kid might be activated by them. They probably will go to dinner, right? There's always going to be these things when your child gets married. Like this person doesn't go away. I have a client who has older children, and I have like implored them now that their kids are in their 20s, to speak to their kids about some of the concepts, because now they're adults. But when they're experiencing something, not to just say, oh, you can go handle that, but to be like, how can I help? What can I do? What can I validate? What do you need help with? Do you need help thinking about this? Or like, it's not like putting yourself in the fire again, but it's supporting your adult children, like to begin to get to the other side and supporting them if they want to do therapy or talking through things or talking through dynamics. Like that does come up later. So if you have gotten this far, I just want to say, I see you. I know how hard this is. I know it feels like there's absolutely no end in sight. And I know it feels impossible to keep going sometimes. Like I really do understand that can feel impossible, like how long this is going to be. But you will keep going because you have to for your kids. Acceptance in this case isn't about just feeling your best. Maybe it's about recognizing that this is the best you can do for yourself right now. And that has to be enough. So maybe if you are operating at 60% of 100, and that actually is your 100 right now, maybe that's it. Maybe this is the best because you are dealing with hell and nobody knows about it because they don't understand it. And if you tried to explain it, they wouldn't get it. So you choose not to talk about it because then you're always talking about it, right? There's so many parts to this, but maybe that's it. And I really encourage you to find people that get it. There are communities out there. There are coaches like me. I do this work with people all the time in various states and also various countries of how to begin to understand the high conflict situation and the divorce that they're in and navigate through, because the principles can work everywhere. And because I've had so many clients in, various, like I have tons of clients in California, for example. And so a lot of the laws and legalities I have learned over time because they're similar to other ones. I mean, a lot of people that are usually in this spot are also educating themselves on the laws, but like there are people that can help. There are people that see you, understand you, and there are communities like the one-on-one One Mom's Battle that you can join for your specific state or even just at large. But you're not alone in this. It does feel really hard. I wish there was more support, more awareness, a lot of things in this area. But the truth is that it's not right now. Doesn't mean it won't be forever. And I had a conversation with my attorney this week about like the broken system. And she had some really great ideas on how she sees it changing. Now, will it change? I don't know. But we can begin to take those steps forward and like really fight the battles that we can fight. So we are saving the energy that we need for our kids. And so I want to leave you with a few resources. I have How to Document for Family Court. It's a self-study course on my website, emotionalabusecoach.com. Just go to courses. And then I also have How to Divorce a Narcissist. I also have like a really funny guide that's meant to be more satire of like a narcissist guide to family court. Basically, it's like, oh, if we don't laugh, we're going to cry. So we might as well just make light of it. But it basically is like the handbooks that they go through. It's also on my website. There's a few resources. There's DV Leap, which is an online community. There's also National Family Court Watch Project, which tracks a lot of the trends and things going on in family court. And if you do end up getting into some support, or if you reach out to a therapist or coach, make sure they understand post-separation abuse, because that's what you're experiencing. I hope that this was helpful. I hope it was validating. And if you do need any support, please feel free to reach out to me, Jessica at jessicaknightcoaching.com.